The alarm bells rang through the monitoring station like screaming metal birds. Commander Hyun-woo dropped his morning coffee and ran to the main control room. His boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor as dozens of his crew members rushed. Around him, what is happening? Hyun-woo shouted over the noise. "Sir, we have an unknown contact," said Officer Taeho, his fingers dancing over the glowing controls. "It just appeared from nowhere." Hyun-woo looked at the big screen that showed the empty space around Kepler 442b. The planet below was a dead rock. But it was important because 3 major space routes crossed here. That was why the Galactic Trade Consortium built this station. They watched for pirates, smugglers, and anything else that might cause trouble, but this was different. This was impossible. "Show me the readings," Hyun-woo said. The screen changed. Numbers and lines appeared everywhere. Hyun-woo had been a space commander for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The energy readings were wrong. They were too high and too strange. "Sir," Taeho said quietly, "the computer says this ship is using technology we do not understand." A new voice spoke from behind them. "Because it is not from our time." Hyun-woo turned around. Jina walked into the control room. She was the station's expert on old things, ancient ruins, dead languages, and forgotten technology. Her dark eyes were wide with fear and excitement. "What do you mean?" Hyun-woo asked. Jin moved to the main screen and pointed at the image. Now they could see the ship clearly. It was long and dark, like a knife made of metal and shadows. Strange symbols covered its hull. Parts of it looked broken, like it had been in many fights. "I have seen pictures of ships like this," Jinna said, "in the Forbidden's archives. Ships that were supposed to be destroyed thousands of years ago." "What ships?" Hyun-woo felt cold fear in his stomach. "Human ships." The control room became very quiet. Everyone knew the stories. Parents told them to children to make them behave. Teachers used them to explain why some knowledge was too dangerous. To learn, humans were the monsters from the old days, the ones who nearly destroyed everything, but humans were gone. They had been gone for 3,000 years. "That is impossible," Taeho said. "Humans are extinct." "Are they?" Jinna touched the screen. "Look at these symbols. This is old galactic standard writing, very old, and this design." She paused. "This is definitely a human warship." Suddenly, the communication system made a sound. A voice began to speak. It was deep and tired, like someone who had been traveling for a very long time. "This is Captain Du Hyen of the United Earthship Ragnarok. We carry the MIDGARD Serpent. All civilizations are advised to maintain safe distance." The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. Hyun-woo felt like ice water was running through his body. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name, the MIDGARD Serpent. The weapon that ate stars, the thing that destroyed Earth itself? "Send an emergency signal to all the major powers," Hyun-woo said. His voice was shaking. Tell them the humans are back." Taeho's hands moved quickly over his controls. Within minutes, faster than light messages were racing to every corner of the galaxy. To the Synthesis Collective, where machines and organic beings live together. To the Hegemony of Suns, the great military empire. To the Crystal Dominion, where warrior crystals ruled with iron will. All of them would remember the old warnings. All of them would be afraid. "Sir," said another officer, "the ship is not moving. It is just floating there." "Maybe it is broken," Taeho suggested. Jin shook her head. "No, it is waiting. Waiting for what?" "For us to decide what to do next." Hyun-woo walked closer to the screen. The human ship looked so small compared to the giant space station. But he knew that size did not matter. The old story said that human ships could destroy fleets of larger vessels. They said humans were the best fighters in the galaxy, and their technology was like magic. "How many humans do you think are on that ship?" he asked. "I do not know," Jinna said. "The old records say human ships usually carried between 500 and 2,000 crew members. So few people to scare the entire galaxy." "Numbers do not matter when you have the right weapon," Jinna said quietly. On the screen, the Ragnarok continued to float in space. It looked peaceful, almost dead. But Haiyan Wu could feel the danger coming from it like heat from a fire. This ship had traveled through places where normal ships could not go. It had survived things that would destroy other vessels. And somewhere inside it was the MIDGARD serpent. "Sir," Teho said, "I'm getting reports from our sensor nets across the system. The collective has sent 3 battle groups. The hegemony is moving a full fleet. Even the Crystal Dominion is sending their war forms. How long until they get here?" "The fastest ships will arrive in 6 hours, Haiyan Wu nodded. 6 hours to figure out what to do with the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. 6 hours before the biggest military forces in known space arrived at his little monitoring station. "Jin, I need you to find everything you can about humans and their technology. Use any archive you need to, even the forbidden ones." "Yes, sir." "Teho, keep watching that ship. If it moves even a little bit, I want to know." "What about the crew?" Teho asked. "Should we prepare for evacuation?" Hanwu thought about this. If the humans wanted to attack, his station would be dust before anyone could escape. But if they ran away, it might make the humans think they were hostile. "No, we stay. But prepare the emergency systems just in case." As his crew worked, Haiyan stared at the human ship. What did they want? Why had they come back after so long? And what did they plan to do with the MIDGARD serpent? The old stories said that humans were proud and stubborn. They said humans never forgave and never forgot. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy had united against them. The galaxy had driven them away. Now they were back. "Sir," Jinna called from her workstation, "I found something." The name Ragnarok. It comes from old human mythology. It means the end of the world. Hanwu felt the ice in his stomach get colder. What kind of people name their ship after the end of the world? The kind of people who have already lost everything. Jinna said outside the station. The Ragnarok waited in the darkness of space, silent, patient, dangerous. And somewhere inside it, the last humans in the galaxy prepared for whatever would come next. Taemin had spent his entire life studying the past. His office on the university planet of New Athens was filled with old books, ancient data crystals, and fragments of technology that most people had forgotten. He was one of the galaxy's best historians, and today he was more afraid than he had ever been in his life. The emergency message from the monitoring station had reached every major world in the galaxy. Humans were back. The MIDGARD serpent had returned. And nobody knew what that meant. Taemin's fingers shook as he opened the Forbidden's archives. These were the files that governments kept locked away. The stories they did not want people to know. The truth about what really happened 3,000 years ago. "Computer," he said to the air, "show me all files related to humans, classification level 10 and above." A soft voice answered him. "Warning. These files contain restricted historical information. Access may result in legal punishment. Override with my emergency research code. Access granted." The room filled with floating screens showing pictures, documents, and video recordings. Most of them were damaged or incomplete. Time had destroyed much of the evidence. But there was enough left to tell the real story, and it was not the story that children learned in school. Tae-min started with the oldest files. They showed humans as they were before the war. They were not monsters. They were explorers and builders. Their ships were beautiful works of art that could travel faster than anything else in the galaxy. Their cities floated in space like jewels. Made of light and metal, humans were also the best fighters anyone had ever seen. Not because they were cruel, but because they were clever and brave. When pirates attacked trade ships, humans hunted them down. When slavers tried to steal people from weak planets, humans stopped them. They became the galaxy's protectors, but they were also the galaxy's weapon makers. Taemin found files about human technology that made his head spin. They could build machines that thought like living beings. They could create energy from nothing. They could make weapons that could destroy entire star systems with a single shot. Other species began to fear them. Not because humans attacked anyone, but because they became too powerful. Too dangerous. Then Taemin found the files about the real reason for the war. Far beyond the edge of the galaxy, deep in the empty space between star groups, something was coming. The oldest files called them the Devourers. They were machines the size of moons that ate everything in their path. They turned planets into metal. They changed living beings into parts of themselves. Humans had found signs of them first. They had tried to warn everyone. But other species thought humans were lying. They thought humans wanted to trick them into giving up their independence. So the other species made a plan. They would attack humans before humans could attack them. They would destroy human technology before it became too dangerous. Tae-Min felt sick as he read the war reports. Dozens of species working together. Thousands of ships attacking human colonies. Millions of innocent people killed because everyone was afraid, but humans were still better fighters. Even outnumbered 50-1, they kept winning. Their ships were too fast, their weapons too powerful, their tactics too clever. That was when humans created the MIDGARD serpent. Tae-Min found only small pieces of information about it. The files that described the serpent had been destroyed or hidden too well. But he could see enough to understand what it was. It was not just a weapon. It was something much worse. The serpent was alive. It was made from the minds of billions of humans who had volunteered to become part of something greater. They had given up their bodies and their individual lives to create a weapon that could think and feel and choose its own targets, and it could eat anything. Matter, energy, space itself. Nothing could stop it. Humans tested it on a dead star system. The serpent consumed 3 planets and 2 moons in less than an hour. Then it asked for more. The galaxy panicked. Every species that had been fighting humans suddenly wanted to make peace. But it was too late. Tae-Min found the final war reports. The Allied fleets had surrounded Earth, humanity's homeworld. They demanded that humans surrender and destroy the MIDGARD serpent. If humans refused, the Allies would use planet-killer weapons to destroy Earth. And every human in the galaxy, humans chose a third option. They turned the MIDGARD serpent on their own planet. Tae-Min had to stop reading for a moment. He walked to his window and looked out at the peaceful campus below. Students were walking between buildings, laughing and talking. They had no idea that their entire civilization was built on a lie. The files said that Earth's destruction had created something impossible, a hole in space and time that sent the remaining human fleets into a place that was not really part of the normal universe. They disappeared completely. For 3,000 years, everyone thought they were dead, but they were not dead. They were lost. Tae-Min opened the most recent files. Intelligence reports from the past few decades. Strange signals from empty space. Ships that appeared and vanished too quickly to track. Phenomena that science could not explain. Now he understood. Humans had been trying to find their way home, and they had finally succeeded. A soft chime told him that someone wanted to talk to him. Taemin accepted the call, and a hologram of his colleague So Young appeared in the room. So Young was not human. She belonged to a species called the empaths. They could feel emotions and memories from objects and places. Governments often hired them to investigate crimes or verify historical events. Taemin, So Young said, I need to tell you something important. I am at the monitoring station near Kepler 442b. You are near the human ship? Yes, the commander. Here asked me to examine some artifacts that came from it. Small pieces that broke off when it arrived. Taemin waited. So Young's face was very pale. Taemin, I touched one of the pieces. The emotions I felt. She paused. 3,000 years of grief, 3,000 years of anger, but also 3,000 years of hope. Hope for what? Hope that they could come home, hope that they could make things right, and hope that they could protect the galaxy from what is coming. What is coming? So Young's image flickered. The same thing humans were trying to warn. Everyone about 3,000 years ago, the Devourers, they are still out there, Taemin, and they are getting closer. The call ended. Taemin stood alone in his office. surrounded by the scattered pieces of history. Everything made sense now. Humans had not come back for revenge. They had come back because the galaxy needed them. The same species that everyone had driven away were the only ones who knew how to fight the real enemy. Tay-Min began to write his report. He would send it to every government, every university, every news service in the galaxy. People needed to know the truth. They needed to understand that humans were not the monsters from their nightmares. They were the heroes from their forgotten dreams. Outside his window, the sun was setting. In a few hours, the human ship would be surrounded by the largest military force in galactic history. Everyone would be expecting a battle, but maybe, if enough people learned the truth in time, they could have peace instead. Maybe they could have a second chance to do things right. Tay-Min kept writing. Every word might save lives. Every sentence might change the future. The galaxy had made a mistake 3,000 years ago. It was time to fix it. Captain Du-Hyen stood on the bridge of the Ragnarok and looked out at the stars. They were the same stars his great-grandfather had seen from Earth, but they looked different now. Colder, more distant. Like old friends who no longer recognized him. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. These people had never seen Earth. They had never walked on grass or felt rain on their faces. They had been born in the space between spaces, in the void where normal ships could not travel, but they were still human. And they remembered. "Captain," said Mi Young from the navigation station, "the alien fleets are getting closer. The first ships will reach us in 3 hours." Du-Hyen nodded but did not turn around. Mi Young was young, only 25 years old. Her grandmother had been born on Earth, but Mi Young had spent her entire life on this ship. She knew the stars better than any human who had ever lived, but she had never seen a blue sky. "How many ships?" Du-Hyen asked. "At least 300. Sir, maybe more coming. 300 ships against one." Those were not good numbers, but humans had faced worse odds before. Du-Hyen's people had been fighting for survival for 3,000 years. They knew how to make impossible things possible. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Daeho, "the quantum containment field is stable. The Serpent is secure." Du-Hyen finally turned around. Daeho was the oldest person on the ship, nearly 70 years old. His hair was white and his hands were covered with scars from working with dangerous technology. But his eyes were still sharp and his mind was still quick. "How long can we keep it contained if we have to fight?" Du-Hyen asked. "As long as we need to, sir." The field has never failed. Du-Hyen hoped that was true. The MIDGARD Serpent was not just their greatest weapon. It was also their greatest responsibility. Deep in the heart of the ship, behind walls of quantum steel and energy barriers, something waited that could destroy entire star systems, but it was not a monster. Du-Hyen knew that, even if the rest of the galaxy did not understand. "Captain," said weapons specialist Junho, "all defensive systems are ready. But sir, with respect, we cannot fight 300 ships." Junho was Du-Hyen's age, 42 years old. They had grown up together on this ship, playing in the corridors and learning how to be human from the older generation. Now they were the older generation, and it was their job to keep humanity alive. "We will not fight unless we have to," Du-Hyen said. "But if we do fight, we will win." "How can you be sure, sir?" Du-Hyen smiled sadly. "Because we are the last humans in the universe, Junho. We cannot afford to lose." A soft alarm sounded. Yunji looked up from her station near the back of the bridge. She was the ship's physicist and the keeper of the Serpent. It was her job to make sure the containment field stayed strong and to communicate with the entity when necessary. "Captain," Yunji said, "the Serpent is asking about the approaching ships." "What is it asking?" "It wants to know if they are enemies." Du-Hyen felt a chill run down his back. The Serpent could sense things that normal technology could not detect. It could feel the emotions and intentions of living beings across vast distances. If it was asking about enemies, it meant it was preparing for war. "Tell it to wait," Du-Hyen said. "Tell it we are trying to find a peaceful solution." Yunji nodded and placed her hand on a strange crystal that grew from her control panel. The crystal glowed with soft blue light as she made contact with the serpent's consciousness. Du Hyan watched her face carefully. Yunji was the only person on the ship who could safely communicate with the serpent. The process was dangerous. Every time she touched the crystal, she risked losing herself in the vast network of minds that made up the entity. After a few moments, Yunji opened her eyes. It understands, Captain, but it is worried. Worried about what? About us. It can feel our emotions, and it knows we are afraid. It wants to protect us. That was the thing that the galaxy had never understood about the MIDGARD serpent. It was not a mindless weapon of destruction. It was made from the consciousness of billions of humans who had chosen to sacrifice their individual existence to create something that could protect their species. The serpent loved humanity, and it would do anything to keep humans safe. Captain, Mi-young said, I am receiving a communication request from the alien fleets. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Du Hyan was looking at the faces of several alien commanders. He recognized the species even though he had never met any of them personally. The crystalline features of the Crystal Dominion. The smooth metal face of a synthesis collective artificial intelligence. The proud bearing of a hegemony officer. One of them stepped forward. It was a female from a species Du Hyan did not recognize. She had kind eyes and spoke in careful, precise words. I am Ambassador He One of the Synthesis Collective, she said. We wish to speak with you peacefully. Du Hyan looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. These people trusted him to make the right choice. The future of humanity depended on what he said next. I am Captain Du Hyan of the United Earthship Ragnarok, he replied. We are willing to talk. Good, we propose a meeting in neutral space, with representatives from all major galactic powers. And what do you want to discuss? He One hesitated. Your intentions, Captain. Why have you returned? What do you plan to do with the weapon you carry? Du Hyan almost laughed. These people still thought humans were the enemy. They still believed the old lies. We returned because we had no choice, Du Hyan said. And the weapon we carry is not what you think it is? Then what is it? Du Hyan looked at Yunji. She nodded slightly, encouraging him to tell the truth. It is our people, Du Hyan said. Billions of humans who chose to become something greater than themselves. They are not dead, Ambassador. They are watching, they are waiting. And they are ready to defend this galaxy against the real enemy. What real enemy? The one that is coming from beyond the edge of known space. The one your ancestors refused to believe in 3,000 years ago. The alien commanders looked at each other, with confusion and fear. Du Hyan could see that some of them remembered the old stories. Some of them knew what he was talking about. The devourers are real, Du Hyan continued. They are still coming, and when they arrive, they will not care about your politics or your borders or your species. They will consume everything. How do you know this? Asked the hegemony officer. Because we have been watching them for 3,000 years, Du Hyan said. Because we have been preparing to fight them. Because that is why humans created the MIDGARD serpent in the first place. The communication ended abruptly as the alien commanders cut the connection to discuss what they had heard. Du Hyan turned to his crew. What do you think? I think they are scared, said Junho. Good, said Daeho. Scared people make smart decisions. Or very stupid ones, Mi-young added. Yunji looked up from her crystal. Captain, the serpent wants me to show them something. Show them what? The truth. It wants to share its memories of the devourers. It wants them to see what is coming. Du Hyan thought about this. It was risky. If the aliens saw the full power of the serpent, they might attack out of fear. But if they saw what the devourers could do, they might understand why humans had been willing to sacrifice everything to stop them. Do it, Du Hyan said. Show them everything. Outside the ship, 300 alien vessels waited in the darkness. Soon, they would learn the truth about humanity's greatest weapon, and they would understand why the galaxy needed the Midgard serpent to survive. Ambassador Haewon floated in the conference room of her ship, watching the data streams flow across her vision. As a member of the Synthesis Collective, she was part machine and part organic being. Her metal parts helped her think faster and remember more, while her organic parts let her understand emotions and make connections that pure machines could not. Right now, she was very confused. The human captain had said things that did not match what she had learned in school. According to the history books, humans were warlike and dangerous. They had created the Midgard serpent to conquer the galaxy. When other species united to stop them, humans had destroyed their own planet rather than surrender, but Captain Du Hyun spoke of defending the galaxy. He talked about an enemy called the Devourers, and he claimed that the Midgard serpent was made from the minds of volunteers, not slaves. "Computer," Haewon said, "show me all classified files about the human war, priority level 7 and above." New information appeared in her mind. Secret reports that normal citizens never saw. Battle records that had been hidden for thousands of years. And slowly, a different picture began to form. The files showed that humans had indeed tried to warn other species about something coming from outside the galaxy. They had shared sensor data and star charts. They had offered to work together to build defenses, but the other species had not listened. They had thought humans were lying to gain power over them. Haewon felt sick. Her own people, the Synthesis Collective, had been among the leaders of the war against humanity. They had helped plan the attacks on human colonies. They had voted to destroy Earth if humans did not surrender. "Ambassador," said her assistant, a young AI named Bin Woo, "the human ship is requesting another meeting." "Just Captain Du Hyun?" "No, he wants to bring his science officer, someone called Yoonji. Hey, one thought about this. Science officers did not usually attend diplomatic meetings unless they had something important to share. Accepted. But I want representatives from all the major fleets present." An hour later, Haewon found herself in a shuttle flying toward a neutral meeting point between the fleets. Other shuttles were coming from different directions. The Crystal Dominion had sent Warform Kyungsoo, a massive being made of living crystal who commanded their most powerful battle group. The Hegemony of Suns had sent Admiral Seokjin, a decorated military officer known for his tactical brilliance. They met on a small space station that had been abandoned for centuries. The artificial gravity was weak and the air was stale, but it was neutral ground where no one had an advantage. Captain Du Hyun arrived with his science officer Yoonji and another human he introduced as the Jin, their cultural expert. Hey, one was surprised by how normal they looked. She had expected monsters or warriors covered in scars. Instead, she saw tired people who carried themselves with quiet dignity. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Du Hyun said as they sat around a circular table. "I know this is not easy for any of you." "Cut the pleasantries," growled Kyungsoo. The crystal being's voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "We are here because you have a weapon that can destroy star systems. We want to know what you plan to do with it." "We plan to use it to defend this galaxy," Du Hyun replied calmly. "Defend it from what?" asked Admiral Seokjin. He was younger than Haewon had expected, maybe 40 years old, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. EU Onji leaned forward. "From the same threat we tried to warn you about 3,000 years ago. With your permission, I would like to show you what we have learned during our exile." She placed a small device on the table. It looked like a crystal, but it pulsed with inner light. "This is a memory crystal," Yoonji explained. "It contains data we have gathered about the Devourers. But it also contains something else. Memories from the Midgard serpent itself." Kyungsoo's crystal body flared with red light. "You want us to connect our minds to your weapon?" "I want you to understand what we are facing," Yoonji said. "The serpent will not harm you. It knows the difference between friends and enemies." Haewon looked at the other representatives. She could see fear in their faces, but also curiosity. Finally, Admiral Seokjin reached out and touched the crystal. The room disappeared. Suddenly, one was floating in deep space, far beyond the edge of the galaxy. Stars were few and distant here. The darkness was almost complete, but something was moving in that darkness. She saw them clearly now. The Devourers, they were not ships in any normal sense. They were structures the size of moons, made from metal and flesh combined in ways that hurt to look at. They moved through space like living things, but they were machines. Ancient machines that had consumed entire galaxies. The vision showed her one of their attacks. A beautiful solar system with 7 inhabited planets. Billions of people living peaceful lives. Then the Devourers arrived. They did not use weapons. They did not need to. They simply absorbed everything they touched. Planets became part of their bodies. People were transformed into components of their vast minds. Within days, the entire system was gone, converted into more Devo Eris, and they were coming toward the Milky Way. The vision ended. Hey, one found herself back in the conference room, breathing hard. Around the table, the other representatives looked equally shaken. When? Asked Admiral Seokjin. His voice was very quiet. Our best estimate is 18 months, Du Hyun said. Maybe less. How many of them? At least 50,000. Possibly more. Kyung-Soo's crystal body had turned pale white. Our fleets cannot fight something like that. No, Du Hyun agreed, but the MIDGARD serpent can. Hey, one found her voice. How can you be sure? Yunji answered. Because it was designed specifically to fight the Devourers. Every part of its structure, every ability it has, was created for this purpose. But your people used it to destroy Earth, Kyung-Soo said. Yes, Du Hyun said sadly. Because Earth was about to be captured by your fleets. If that had happened, you would have tried to study the serpent. You would have learned how to control it. And when the Devourers arrived, you would not have known how to use it properly. So you destroyed your own homeworld to keep the weapon out of our hands, Admiral Seokjin said slowly. We sacrificed everything to keep the galaxy safe, Dajin said. It was the first time the cultural officer had spoken. Even though the galaxy had declared war on us, even though you hunted us like criminals, we still chose to protect you. The room was very quiet. Hey, one could hear the old space station creaking around them. Finally, Admiral Seokjin spoke. I have been reading classified files during this meeting. Files that were hidden even from me. He looked directly at Du Hyun. The reports about humans trying to warn us. They are real, are they not? Yes, my government lied to me. They lied. To everyone? Not just your government, Hae-won said quietly. Mine too. All of our governments knew the truth and chose to hide it. Kyung-Soo's body flared with angry red light. They feared human power more than they feared the real enemy. And now the real enemy is almost here, Du Hyun said. We can spend the next 18 months fighting each other, or we can work together to save the galaxy. What do you need from us? Admiral Seokjin asked. Your trust, Du Hyun said. Your ships. Your people? The serpent is powerful, but it cannot be everywhere at once. We need to rebuild the defensive networks that humans started 3,000 years ago. And if we refuse? Kyung-Soo asked. Du Hyun looked around the table. Then in 18 months, everything you know will be gone? Your people, your worlds, your civilizations? All of it will become part of the Devourers. Hey, one made her decision. The Synthesis Collective will help you. As will the Hegemony, said Admiral Seokjin. All eyes turned to Kyung-Soo. The crystal being was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. The Crystal Dominion has always respected strength. You have shown us strength and wisdom. We will consider your proposal. It was not a yes, but it was not a no either. Du Hyun stood up. Then we should begin immediately. Every day we waste brings the Devourers closer. As the meeting ended, Hae-won realized that everything had changed. The humans were not the monsters from the old stories. They were the guardians who had been waiting in exile for 3,000 years. And now, finally, they had come home. 3 days after the first meeting, the galaxy was in chaos. News of the Devourers had leaked to the public, and panic was spreading from world to world. Some planets were trying to build their own defenses. Others were preparing to run to distant star systems. Most were simply waiting in fear. Admiral Seok Jin stood in his private office aboard the Hegemony flagship, reading reports that made his blood run cold. His own intelligence officers had found the truth in their classified archives. Everything the humans had said was real. Worse, his government had known about it the entire time. "Sir," said his aide, Lieutenant Hyo Min, "there is an encrypted message for you from the capital." Seok Jin opened the message and felt his heart sink. His superiors were ordering him to capture the human ship and take the MIDGARD serpent by force. They wanted to study the weapon and learn how to control it themselves. They still did not understand. They still thought they could use the serpent like any other tool of war. "Hyo Min," Seok Jin said quietly, "how many ships in our battle group do you think would follow my orders, even if those orders went against the capital?" The young officer looked surprised. "Sir, that would be treason," answered the question. Hyo Min thought for a moment. "Most of them, sir. The crews respect you more than they respect the politicians back home." Seok Jin nodded. He had made his decision. Meanwhile, on the monitoring station, Ambassador Haewon was having her own crisis of faith. She had received similar orders from the Synthesis Collective. They wanted her to negotiate for shared control of the MIDGARD serpent, but Haewon had touched the memory crystal. She had seen what the serpent really was. It was not a weapon that could be owned or controlled. It was a living thing made from the consciousness of billions of people who had died to protect the galaxy. "Binwoo," she said to her AI assistant, "I need you to access the quantum communication array." "To contact the collective leadership?" "No, to contact Captain Du Hyan." On the Crystal Dominion flagship, Warform Kyung-soo was facing the biggest decision of his very long life. His people were warriors. They respected strength and despised weakness. For 3,000 years, they had told stories about how they helped defeat the mighty humans. Now, he knew those stories were lies. Kyung-soo's body was made of living crystal that could change color based on his emotions. Right now he was a deep purple, the color of shame and regret. His subordinates were watching him carefully, waiting to see what he would decide. "Warform," said his second-in-command, a smaller crystal being named Dalsu. "The Council is demanding a response to their orders." The Council wanted Kyung-soo to attack the human ship while it was outnumbered. They thought this was their chance to claim the serpent for their Crystal Dominion. "Dalsu," Kyung-soo said slowly, "what do you know about honor?" "Honor is strength, used to protect those who cannot protect themselves." "And what do you call strength used to attack those who are trying to protect you?" Dalsu's crystal body flickered with understanding. "That is not honor, Warform. That is cowardice." Kyung-soo turned to look at his fleet. Hundreds of crystal ships floating in perfect formation, each one capable of destroying planets, all of them waiting for his command. "Send a message to all ships," Kyung-soo said. "We are changing sides." Back on the Ragnarok, Captain Du Hyan was trying to hold his people together. The stress of the past few days was showing on everyone. They had spent 3,000 years in exile, always moving, always hiding. Now they were surrounded by hundreds of alien ships, and the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. "Captain," said Unji from her station, "the serpent is getting restless. It can sense the tension around us." "What is it feeling?" "Confusion. It does not understand why some of the aliens want to fight us. It knows we are trying to protect them." Du Hyan walked over to Yunji's station and looked at the glowing crystal that connected her to the serpent. Sometimes he wondered what it would be like to touch it himself, to experience the collective consciousness of his ancestors, but that was not his role. His job was to command the ship and make the hard decisions. "Tell the serpent to be patient," Du Hyan said. "Tell it that. Fear makes people do stupid things." Before Yunji could respond, the communication system activated. Ambassador Haewon's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Du Hyan," she said, "I need to tell you something important. My government has ordered me to negotiate for control of the MIDGARD serpent." Du Hyan felt his crew tense around him. This was what they had been expecting. The aliens would try to take the serpent by force or trickery, and what is your response to those orders? Du Hyan asked. My response is that some orders should not be followed, Haewon said firmly. The Synthesis Collective does not understand what they are asking for. The serpent cannot be controlled by governments or councils. It can only be guided by those it trusts. Du Hyan smiled for the first time. In days? Are you saying you want to help us? I'm saying I want to help the galaxy survive. And that means keeping the serpent in the hands of people who understand its true nature. The screen split as more calls came in. Admiral Seokjin appeared on one side, his face grim but determined. Captain Du Hyan, Seokjin said, I have just received orders to capture your ship. I'm choosing to disobey those orders. Why? Because I read the files. All of them, including the ones that describe what happened to the advanced scouts we sent toward Devour Space 50 years ago. Du Hyan felt cold. You sent scouts? 12 ships. They never came back. But their final transmissions, they described exactly what you showed us in that memory crystal. The screen split again. Warform Kyungsu's massive crystal form appeared. Humans, Kyungsu said. The Crystal Dominion has acted without honor for 3,000 years. Today we choose to act with honor instead. What does that mean? Asked the Jinn. It means my fleet is yours to command. Du Hyan looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at the screens in amazement. In the space of minutes, 3 of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy had chosen to support humanity instead of their own governments. This is going to cause a lot of problems, Mi Young said quietly. Yes, Du Hyan agreed. But it also gives us a chance. Eunji suddenly gasped and pressed both hands against her crystal. Captain, the serpent is showing me something. It is reaching out across space. Reaching out to what? To them, the Devourers. It can sense them now. They are closer than we thought. The main screen changed, showing a star map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared at the very edge, moving slowly but steadily inward. How long do we have? Du Hyan asked Dadiyu Unji. Was quiet for a moment, communing with the vast intelligence of the serpent. When she opened her eyes, her face was pale. 14 months, she said. Maybe less. Ambassador Haewon spoke first. Then we need to start preparing immediately. Agreed, said Admiral Seokjin. But we cannot do this alone. We need more allies. And, we need to deal with our own governments, Kyungsu added. They will not give up easily. Du Hyan stood up straight, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders like an old familiar coat. Then we had better get started. Eunji, I need you to work with our new allies to establish communication with the serpent. It will need to learn their technologies and tactics. Yes, sir? Mi Young, start plotting jump coordinates for every inhabited system in the galaxy. We are going to need supply bases and safe harbors. Understood, Captain. Daeho, begin working with the alien engineers to see how we can upgrade their ships. Right away, sir. Du Hyan turned back to the screen. Ambassador Haewon, Admiral Seokjin, Warform Kyungsu. You have made a choice that will change everything. Are you ready for what comes next? We are ready, Haewon said. Our fleets are yours, Seokjin added. We will fight with honor. Kyungsu declared. Du Hyan nodded. Then let us begin. We have a galaxy to save. Outside the ship, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if they knew that hope had returned to the darkness. The last humans were no longer alone, and for the first time in 3,000 years, they had allies who believed in them. Warform Kyungsu had made many mistakes in his 300-year life, but trusting the humans was not one of them. He learned this the hard way when his own people arrived to punish him for his betrayal. The Crystal Dominion fleet jumped into the system like angry gods. 50 massive ships made of living crystal, each one glowing with the fury of the council back home. They had come to destroy the traitor Kyungsu and claim the human weapon for themselves. Warform Kyungsu came. The voice of War Prime Dongmin over the communication channel. You have violated your oath to the Dominion. Surrender now, and your death will be quick. Kyung-soo stood on his command bridge, his crystal body flickering between purple shame and red anger. Around him, his loyal officers waited for orders. They had chosen to follow him, but now they would all die for that choice. "Dalsu," Kyung-soo said to his second-in-command, "do you regret following me? No, Warform, we chose honor over politics. That is always the right choice." Before Kyung-soo could respond, Captain Du-hyan's voice came through the communication. "System, Warform Kyung-soo, move your ships behind ours. We will handle this." "Captain, there are 50 enemy ships. You cannot fight them all." "We will not fight them," Du-hyan said calmly. "We will show them why attacking humans is a very bad idea." On the Ragnarok, Captain Du-hyan felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. For 3,000 years, humans had hidden from the galaxy. They had run from every fight, avoided every confrontation. They had been peaceful refugees trying to find their way home, but some people only understood strength. "Yunji," Du-hyan said quietly, "release the serpent." Yunji looked at him with wide eyes. "Captain, are you sure?" "Once it is free, there is." "No, taking it back. The time for hiding is over. The galaxy needs to see what we are really capable of." Yunji nodded and placed both hands on the glowing crystal at her station. Her consciousness merged with the vast network of minds that made up the MIDGARD serpent. For a moment, she was no longer just Yunji. She was part of something much larger. Deep in the heart of the Ragnarok, quantum locks disengaged. Energy barriers powered down. Containment fields collapsed. And the MIDGARD serpent woke up. War-Prime Dongmin was preparing to give the order to attack when his sensors began screaming warnings. Something was coming out of the human ship, something that his instruments could not properly measure or understand. "What is that?" he demanded. His science officer, a young crystal being named Hae-young, stared at her readings in disbelief. "Sir, the energy readings are impossible. It is like a star is being born inside that ship. Weapons, target the human vessel. Fire everything we have." 50 crystal Dominion ships opened fire at once. Beams of pure energy that could melt planets struck the Ragnarok from every direction and did absolutely nothing. The MIDGARD serpent flowed out of the ship like liquid darkness. It was not solid or gas or energy. It was something else entirely. Something that existed in more dimensions than normal matter could touch. The serpent spread through space like ink in water, but it moved with purpose and intelligence. It reached the first attacking ship and simply absorbed it. The crystal vessel did not explode or break apart. It changed. The living crystal that formed its hull became something new, something that obeyed the serpent's will instead of the crystal dominion's commands. Within seconds, the converted ship turned its weapons on its former allies. "Impossible," War-Prime Dongmin whispered, but the serpent was just getting started. It flowed from ship to ship like a plague of dark intelligence. Each vessel it touched became part of itself. But this was not destruction. This was transformation. The crystal beings inside the ships felt their consciousness expand. Suddenly they could see through the eyes of the serpent. They could feel the love and sacrifice of billions of humans who had chosen to become something greater than themselves, and they understood. "War-Prime," said Wai-young, her voice filled with wonder. "I can feel them. The humans in the serpent. They are not angry. They are protective." Dongmin watched in horror as his fleet was converted one ship at a time. But then something strange happened. The converted ships did not attack the remaining vessels. Instead, they broadcast a message. It was Captain Du-hyan's voice, but somehow it came from everywhere at once. "War-Prime Dongmin, your ships and crews are safe. The serpent will not harm them. But they now understand the truth about what is coming to destroy our galaxy. You can choose to understand as well, or you can leave, but you cannot attack us anymore." Dongmin looked around his bridge. Half his fleet was now under serpent control, but his own officers were staring at him with new knowledge in their eyes. "Sir," Wei-young said softly, "they shared their memories with us. The devourers are real, and they are almost here." The War-Prime felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear, Not fear of the humans, but fear for his people. Fear for his entire civilization. Captain De Hayan, Dongmin said slowly, what do you want from us? Your help, Du Hayan replied. Your knowledge, your ships. Everything you have that can be used to defend this galaxy. And if we refuse? Then the serpent will release your ships and you can go home. But when the devourers arrive, you will face them alone. Admiral Seokjin watched the entire battle from his position near the edge of the system. His own government had sent a fleet to capture him, but after seeing what the serpent could do, the hegemony ships had decided to wait and see what happened. Sir, said Lieutenant Hyomin, the hegemony fleet is requesting permission to join. The alliance, Seokjin smiled. Granted. Send them the communication codes that Captain Du Hayan gave us? Ambassador Haewon was having similar success with the synthesis collective forces. After witnessing the serpent's power, most of the AI commanders had quickly calculated that cooperation was more logical than conflict, but the most important change was happening on the converted Crystal Dominion ships. The serpent had not just taken control of the vessels. It had shared knowledge. The crystal beings who had been touched by its consciousness now understood human technology, human history, and human sacrifice in ways that no textbook could teach. They knew that humans had chosen to exile themselves rather than let the galaxy fall to the devourers. They knew that the serpent was not a weapon of conquest, but a tool of protection built from the willing sacrifice of billions of people. And they knew that time was running out. Captain Du Hayan, said War Prime Dongmin, what do you need us to do? First, we need to retrofit your ships with quantum shields. The devourers can absorb normal matter, but quantum technology confuses them. Done. Second, we need to establish communication networks across the galaxy. When the devourers arrive, we will need to coordinate our response. The Crystal Dominion has the best long-range communication systems in the galaxy. They are yours to use. Third, we need to start training your crews to work with the serpent. It cannot be everywhere at once, but it can guide and enhance your weapons. Dalsu, who had been converted along with his ship, spoke up. Captain, the serpent is already teaching us. It is beautiful, Du Hayan nodded. He understood. The serpent was not just a weapon. It was the collective soul of humanity, given form and purpose. To touch it was to understand what humans had sacrificed to protect the galaxy. How long until the devourers arrive? Asked Dong-min.eun-g, still connected to the serpent, answered. 12 months. The serpent can sense them more clearly now. There are at least 60,000 of them. The number hit everyone like a physical blow. 60,000 devourers, each one the size of a moon. Each one capable of consuming entire star systems. Can we stop them? Asked Young. Du Hayan looked around at the mixed fleet of human, crystal, synthetic, and organic ships that now surrounded the Ragnarok. A month ago, these people had been enemies. Now they were allies united by necessity and truth. Yes, Du Hayan said firmly. We can stop them. Because for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy is united. And because we have something the devourers do not expect. What is that? Asked Dongmin. Hope, said Yunji, speaking for both herself and the billions of minds within the serpent. We have hope, and the will to fight for something greater than ourselves. Around them, the converted ships began to glow with new purpose. The serpent flowed between them like liquid starlight, connecting them all in a network of shared consciousness. And determination. The last phase of the war was about to begin. 1 year later, Captain Du Hayan stood in the command center of something that had never existed before in galactic history. The station was massive, built around the hull of the original Ragnarok like a flower growing from ancient soil. It was part shipyard, part academy, part memorial to the lost Earth, and part fortress protecting the entire galaxy. They called it Haven Station. Through the huge transparent walls, Du Hayan could see thousands of ships moving in perfect coordination. Crystal vessels that sparkled like jewels worked alongside synthesis collective ships that hummed with artificial intelligence. Hegemony warships practiced formations with converted devourer technology, while smaller vessels from dozens of species carried supplies and messages between the larger fleets. "Captain," said Deho, walking up beside him, "the final modifications are complete. Every ship in the fleet now has quantum shielding and serpent-link communication." Deho looked older now, but also more alive than Duhayan had seen him in years. The old engineer had spent the past 12 months working with alien technicians, sharing human knowledge that had been hidden for 3,000 years. His hair was completely white now, but his eyes burned with purpose. "How many ships do we have?" Duhayan asked. "Over 5,000 combat vessels plus twice that many support ships. Representatives from every major species and most of the minor ones." Duhayan nodded, but his mind was on larger numbers. The Devourers were coming with 60,000 ships. Even with all their new technology and the MIDGARD Serpent's power, they would still be outnumbered 12 to 1. "Sir," said Mi Young-from, "her navigation station. Long-range sensors are detecting the first wave. They will reach the outer rim in 72 hours. Mi Young had changed too over the past year. She was no longer just the ship's navigator. She had become the coordinator for the entire fleet's movement, training alien pilots in the techniques humans had learned during their 3,000 years in the void. "Are our people ready?" Duhayan asked. Before Mi Young could answer, Yunji spoke from her position at the Serpent interface. "They are ready, Captain. More than ready. They are eager." Yunji's connection to the Midgard Serpent had grown stronger over the past year. She could now communicate with it as easily as talking to another person. But more importantly, she had learned to share that connection with others. Over the past 12 months, thousands of volunteers from every species had joined their consciousness to the Serpent. Not permanently, like the original human volunteers, but temporarily. Long enough to understand what they were fighting for and why. The results had been remarkable. Crystal beings who had thought only of war learned to value peace. Artificial intelligences that had calculated only profit began to understand sacrifice. Military officers who had followed orders without question started to think for themselves. "Captain Duhayan," came a voice from the communication system. It was Warform Kyung-soo, now commanding the Crystal Defense Wing from his flagship. "My scouts report that the Devourers have changed their approach pattern." "How so?" "They are not coming in one massive wave as we expected. They are splitting into smaller groups, attacking multiple systems at once." Duhayan frowned. That was a more intelligent strategy than the Devourers had used in the past. Either they were learning or something was controlling them. "Admiral Seok-jin," Duhayan called to another communication channel. Seok-jin's face appeared on the main screen. The hegemony officer was aboard his flagship, leading the combined organic fleet. Over the past year, he had become one of Duhayan's closest allies and friends. "Captain, I heard Kyung-soo's report. This changes our defensive strategy." "Agreed. We cannot protect every system at once." "Then we do not try to," said a new voice. Ambassador Haewon appeared on another part of the screen. She was coordinating the civilian evacuation from her mobile command ship. "We let them take the outer systems and concentrate our forces where they will do the most good." "You want to sacrifice entire worlds?" asked Kyung-soo, his crystal body flaring with angry red light. "I want to save our civilization," Haewon replied calmly. "Sometimes that means making hard choices." Duhayan understood the logic, but it still hurt. Every world they abandoned meant billions of lives lost. But if they tried to defend everything, they would lose everything. "Eunji," Duhayan said, "what does the Serpent think?" Eunji closed her eyes and communed with the vast intelligence. When she opened them again, her expression was troubled. "The Serpent agrees with Ambassador Haewon's strategy, but it wants to try something different first." "What kind of something?" "It wants to talk to them." Everyone in the command center stared at Yoongi. Talk to the Devourers? The idea seemed impossible. The Devourers were machines that consumed everything in their path. They did not negotiate or communicate. "Explain," Duhayan said. "The Serpent believes that the Devourers might have once been like us. living beings who transform themselves to survive some terrible threat. If that is true, then maybe they can be reasoned with, and if they cannot be reasoned with, asked Seokjin, then we fight, Du-hyun said simply. But if there is even a small chance for peace, we have to try. 2 days later, the first Devourer ships reached the edge of the galaxy. They were exactly as terrifying as the memory crystals had shown. Massive structures that looked like a combination of machine and living tissue, moving through space with purpose and hunger. Du-hyun took a small fleet to meet them. The Ragnarok, now enhanced with the best technology from every species in the galaxy, led a group of 20 ships toward the approaching enemy. All ships, maintain formation, Du-hyun ordered. Do not fire unless fired upon. As they got closer, the true size of the Devourers became clear. The smallest one was larger than Haven Station. The largest was the size of a small moon. Their surfaces writhed with mechanical tentacles and organic growth like cancer made of metal and flesh. "Captain," said Jun-ho from the weapons station. "They are scanning us. Let them. Yoonji, are you ready?" Yoonji nodded. The serpent flowed out from the Ragnarok, but instead of its usual dark appearance, it glowed with soft light. It approached the nearest devourer slowly, peacefully. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the devourer's surface began to change. Patterns of light appeared on its hull, responding to the serpent's presence. "They are communicating," Yoonji whispered. "I can feel it." The serpent is talking to something inside the devourer. What is it saying? It is showing them memories. Human memories, memories of Earth before it was destroyed. Memories of love and hope and sacrifice. The patterns of light on the devourer's hull grew brighter. Then, to everyone's amazement, the massive ship stopped moving. "Captain," said Mi-young, "the devourer has powered down its weapons." More devourers were approaching, but they too began to slow as the serpent shared its memories with them. Du-hyun could see the patterns of light spreading from ship to ship like a virus of understanding. Eun-dashi, what is happening? "They remember," Eunji said, tears streaming down her face. "The serpent helped them remember what they used to be." "They were people once, Captain. Billions of people who transformed themselves to escape something even worse than they became. Can they be saved? The serpent thinks so. But it will take time, and not all of them will choose to change." As if to prove her point, a group of devourers from the outer edge of the formation suddenly broke away and headed deeper into the galaxy. These ones had not been touched by the serpent's influence, and they were still driven by their ancient hunger. "All ships," Du-hyun ordered, "pursue the rogue devourers. We cannot let them reach the inhabited systems." The next 3 months were a blur of battles and negotiations. Some devourers could be reasoned with and chose to stop their consumption. Others fought until they were destroyed or converted by the serpent's power, but slowly, steadily the tide turned. The galaxy that emerged from the war was different from the one that had entered it. The old boundaries between species had broken down. Former enemies worked together as friends, and at the center of it all was Haven Station, where humans and aliens lived and worked side by side. Du-hyun stood in his quarters, looking out at the stars. They seemed brighter now, more hopeful. Dajin entered behind him, carrying a datapad with the latest reports. "Captain, the final census is complete. We saved 92% of the galaxy's inhabited worlds. And the devourers? About half chose transformation. The others were either destroyed or driven back into deep space." Du-hyun nodded. "It was not a perfect victory, but it was victory nonetheless." "There is something else, Captain," the Jin said. "The Council of Species has officially voted. They want to rename this galaxy. What do they want to call it?" "The Human Galaxy, in honor of the species that saved it." Du-hyun smiled sadly. "That is kind of them, but unnecessary. This galaxy belongs to everyone who calls it home. What should I tell them?" "Tell them to call it the Free Galaxy, because that is what it is now. Free from fear, free from the old hatred, and free to build something better." The Jin smiled and left to deliver the message. Du-hyun remained at his window, watching the ships of 100 species work together in the starlight. Somewhere in the depths of space, the MIDGARD serpent continued its patient work, helping the converted devourers remember what it meant to be alive. And on 1,000 worlds, children who had never known